y'all. Welcome to the Bonnet Chronicles. We are going to get ready to get fired up. I want to thank everybody who tuned in on Monday. I took a break on Tuesday. I just needed time to cool down, calm down, and thank you for the resub, honey. 13-month subscriber. When I say that these last few weeks have been trying, I'm not being hyperbolic, but I wanted to get through everything I want to talk about tonight without the tears and the frustration that I had on Monday. The anger is still here. Point blank, the more I delved into the topic that I'm going to be ripping apart tonight, the more annoyed with this whole situation I am, because it didn't have to be. It shouldn't be. Yet the fact that this news article, especially that I was reading, tries to cover it as the intellectual way to be racist is what really rubs me the wrong way. It's really stuck in my craw just how insidious and how ridiculous some of this shit has been. So we are going to address Buffalo again tonight. This is the part 2 to it. But instead of the anger that I felt on Monday, which was in that title, we are going to talk about the grace that some people think they need to afford that murderer that we can't. Because lives were displaced, lives were lost. We still have issues in our communities called food deserts. I'm not sure if some of you understand what a food desert is. I didn't realize what those were until I moved south. And then I realized how sheltered I was, even living in Staten Island. Because we had corner stores, we had grocery stores, we had, especially in my neighborhood, an abundance of places where you could get fresh and regular groceries. But I didn't realize that there were places, even in New York, because New York isn't just a city, it is a huge ass state. And there are pockets within my own state and within the city even, where you'd be lucky if you got a bodega or a regular store where you could get groceries. So in a lot of those stores, in a lot of those areas, you have what's known as a food desert, where healthy food, if you're lucky, fresh food is a myth. You get a lot of packaged produce, processed stuff, a lot of chips and snacks and stuff that you can hopefully get in bulk and just sell to the neighborhood. The area where the top supermarket was a food desert. That supermarket was a godsend for them because they would have to go out of their way to do their grocery shopping. And now they've lost it. And they didn't lose it through their violence on their own. They didn't lose it due to high crime or any of that. They lost it because an ignorant white boy decided that the replacement theory, this old bullshit, let me get this up, the photo of the day, because this is how I feel about the replacement theory. Because some dumbass racist child, because to me an 18-year-old is a fucking child, decided that he was being replaced. They took the one hubbub that town had. These people already gone through enough. Most towns that have been the result of redlining, where you congregate black people into them, that low-income black people. Enough of them had already worked out a way to survive with little to nothing. And this motherfucker just came in and took what they had. And what kills me is in the year 2022, we still have food deserts here and around the country. So what happened to those people in Buffalo was a tragedy on top of a tragedy, because now they don't have that center to get fresh produce, to get groceries, to just pick up things like a birthday cake, like that one father was doing before he lost his life. And all because some dumb ass, racist ass child, thinking he's intellectually being racist, wants to talk about the replacement theory. So we are going to pick apart that bullshit tonight. And welcome to the chat, G. Feldman. It really is. What I was studying about this crap that I didn't already know from like gamer boards, because like I said on Monday, even though I was very upset, and I don't apologize for Monday's cast, that was raw emotional tin because that's what I was feeling. But for Monday's cast, I brought up how this was just the constant internet boards for gaming and places like 4chan, which regurgitate this garbage. But yes, it does have its roots in anti-Semitism, a lot of pseudo-intellectualism, eugenics, this stupid-ass French writer who was a heavy fucking anti-Semite posting this bullshit, and all these people are like, oh, I need to get away from this, so I no longer call myself a white nationalist, I call myself a Marxist. All of these fucking far-left fakers, too. They love to indulge in this. And this replacement theory is just another method of dehumanization. And the problem with it is it's so fucking low-hanging, but high bar enough to attract the so-called thinkers amongst their group. And then it makes the really dumb foot soldiers for their fuckery feel like they're smarter by saying it. But the heart of the problem with your replacement theory is who's replacing you? We are all human beings. I will not stop saying that part because it always tends to stump the really dumb ones. You might have some of the more fancier ones that try to talk their way around that shit when you call them out on it. Because it's like, okay, you say you're being replaced. Replaced by what? We're all human beings. But they don't want to argue that fact with anybody. Because in their world, the only way for them to be on top, the only way for them to be better, because they know it's not true. And that's the part that I'm definitely going to keep holding in tonight as well. They know that their bullshit about being white and the supreme ones isn't true, but they've got to say things like, well, we're being replaced, and if we don't protect our lack of pigment from everybody else, what will we have? And this shit has been going on for centuries. They're not getting any better. They're getting more violent. They're getting dumber. And they're doing shit like this massacre in Buffalo. And this is why we can't play around with this. I know I put up that SpongeBob replacement theory meme because for me, just diving in as deep as I did to figure out how and why this shit spread so easily. And you realize that like any bullshit, if you step in it enough, people will repeat it. But going through and seeing how these message boards spread it, how these kids are inundated by it, they hear it on their gaming systems, racial slurs, and how we need to stand up for people that look like us, and video games cater to this shit. I watched an amazing video on YouTube the other day about how the pushback against any kind of diversity in video games is not only nonsensical, but ridiculous because humans come in every shade. But the fact of the matter is we have media that caters to the thought that the only people who should be in entertainment, the only people that should star in anything, the only leads, the only stories that should be told are white people's stories. And when you constantly have both media, entertainment, especially with gaming, the news, and everything else, set in this narrative that this is the norm and everything else is the rest, and then you add in the bad character actors who want to go, you need to protect that. Sure, you're living in a rural town where gun violence is high, drug use is high, people are miserable. Most want to just get out of there if they can. But if we can teach you to ignore that lot in life and say you're just better than the darker skinned humans who are suffering just as much under the same bullshit, then we have a toxic cocktail. We have people that can keep those who won't vote like us in line. And then we have those who will keep uh, out of doing the right thing no matter what because things aren't going to get better. The only people that benefit are the people who are already fucking wealthy, and nothing changes. It is sickening when you think about how much of what's going on, how many of these massacres not only are preventable by better legislator, but by better attitudes in general. Reaching out. It's funny how we have these boards where everybody can congregate and make these little cliques of racist, bigoted, women hating, any kind of ridiculous group can congregate together online. Yet we can't figure out a way to combat that. We can't figure out a way to not only shine a light and push the fallacies of their propaganda. Because at the root of it, that's all it is. Eugenics was nothing but propaganda for white colonists especially to justify all the barbaric bullshit they did when they went into other people's lands, took resources that did not belong to them, and pretty much either slaughtered, raped, or enslaved whoever got in their way. They used to use fancy terms like manifest destiny. It was just garbage. And I see here before you, not just as a product of something horrific in my country. I don't want to think that my creation was just a product of all bad. The reason I'm able to sit here before you and talk not only about the history, but about the current bullshit that's going on is because my people continue to thrive. And because my people are all shades of human. But what drives me up a wall is how many humans have decided that they want to go for that low, easy bar of hate. That low, easy bar of, these people don't look like me. I don't understand stuff about them. So it's easy for me to just want them out of the picture. I just want to hurt them, and it gets them nowhere. Like I said on Monday, that young man is more than likely going to be in jail for the rest of his life if he doesn't get the death penalty. And has the nerve to plead not guilty to first-degree murder, which I don't understand if you all understand. The fact that he went and staged this. He visited the area more than once. He live streamed himself doing that, which Twitch, you need to come on with that. I don't want heavy restrictions on this app. I love Twitch for the freedoms that we normally have on this. But something's got to fucking give when you know that you've got these people on this app. They're not hidden. They think they're untouchable because they think they got freedom of speech to say hateful, harmful things on here. And then you've got these assholes who will live stream themselves drinking and driving, live stream themselves doing shit that they know they're not supposed to do. And I am calling on this company to be vigilant against us. Because no one should feel comfortable videotaping themselves about to commit murder or videotaping themselves murdering people. That is how desensitized to this we have become. And it is a fucking scary place to be when the digital age means we are going to be hostages to digital crime. Everything from a cop who thought he could get away with kneeling on a man's neck until he was dead to this shit. No, we are not going to have a digital Wild West when we watch people lose their lives like this. It's got to stop. And I am calling Twitch out for that shit. We have to have people that are on the watch for this, that can stop this, nip this in the bud, so that these people do not try to make themselves famous using these tools. And YouTube too, all of these places that allow for live streaming need to be on guard for this, because there are going to be more people like this. I warned y'all years ago. The rise in gun violence has been beyond what it needs to be. The rise in hate crimes beyond where it needs to be. The rise in misogyny. It has to stop. And the only way we are going to combat this is to A, definitely work on ourselves, but B, call out, shine a light on these sects online, whether they're on Twitter, whether they're on Facebook or Meta or whatever the fuck you want to call itself, forum boards, because gaming forums are a hotbed for this shit. And it's sad. They think they can lurk within the crevices of places where you're supposed to congregate and talk about raid mechanics or whether or not you like a certain character in the game. In between the cracks and crevices of entertainment posts, you have these racist groups looking, recruiting men from the ages of 18 to 35, fully indoctrinated, little boys under 18. The ages of 14 especially seem to be the crux of when they start grabbing you in. Because it's edgy. You're a little edgelord. Just saying the N-word on Xbox Live. And then you graduate into the pseudo wannabe socialism type ideal thinking. Even though your grandpa and your dad is probably going, oh, you can't think like a socialist. You got all these negative bullshits in your ear. Old racist white people saying things like, oh, you can't be like them. You don't listen to certain music. You can't be around certain people. You got your friends saying things like the N-word to be edgelords. And it's just a cocktail of constant white ignorance. And that's what I'm going to call it. Welcome to the chat, Terry Antico. And welcome again, G. Feldman. I feel like a lot of this shit has been baked into our society for so long that people think, well, there's nothing you can do about it. But there's plenty. The fact of the matter is things are not getting better and we have to do something about it. I picked up this statistic sheet from ABC News. Gun violence has been steadily on the rise. And we should be electing legislators that don't just cater to the NRA's whims, don't just cater to the, oh, my rights bullshit, but actually put effective measures in so that these numbers can go down, so that people can feel a little bit safer doing the basic things. After this weekend, so many of us have once again reevaluated how we're going to do our daily, everyday things, and that is not right. As 10 families bury people who should still be here, what do we do in America? And why are we allowing idiots on 4chan, idiots on Twitter with anime avatars and Nazi symbolism in their fucking name dictating who gets to be human? Because that is the heart of their argument, that they're the better humans, that they're more human than us, so that they got to protect themselves. Protect themselves from what? Nobody wants to breed with you. So you get angry about that. And nobody wants to breed with you because you're ignorant. We don't need any more ignorant people. But even when you educate yourself, you can't separate yourself from your lack of pigment well enough to understand that humanity comes in every shape, hue, and different form. You got big humans, you got little humans, you got fat humans, you got skinny humans. You got humans with dark skin, you got humans with light skin. You got some humans that are in between. Because that is how our species is. But if you listen to a racist, a lack of pigment, and it all depends, even then, will allegedly make you just a little bit better. But don't be a lack of pigment and be Jewish. Don't be a lack of pigment and be atheist. Don't be a lack of pigment and be gay. Don't be a lack of pigment and be a woman. It's all garbage. When you really look at who's allowed in this club, yet they will still push it. And like I said, the idiocy of this replacement theory shit. Because that shit, that's all I think about when I think of that term now. SpongeBob is the perfect meme for this. Because when you break it down, when you break their argument down, they are continuously calling everybody else animals. And FYI, every species on this planet is some form of animal. So you're not even smart when you come up with that diss. But what bothers me the worst is trying to assign value to other humans, trying to assign worth to other humans when y'all's stock isn't worth it. That's why you have so many incels, so many angry young men mad because women won't fuck you. You have a lot of nerve talking about being replaced. You're not being replaced. You're just obsolete. And I know it's hard for you to hear that, but it's the truth. And the moment you start getting it through your head that you are the old model, that your way of thinking makes you undesirable, and thus that's why you won't be able to propagate the way you want, it's not going to get better for you. And like I said, these pockets of domestic terrorists, these pockets of basically He-Man Women Hater Club types, these pockets of angry, dysfunctional idiots with easy access to guns are everywhere in our country. They are the new Al-Qaeda, as I like to call them. And they spread this poison through the internet, whether they're in Facebook groups, whether they're in gaming groups, and we have to start calling this out and countering it. One of the things that bothers me about 10 from even 10 years ago, I'll even go back 10 years ago, because that was when I was really heavily into gaming journalism and really wanting to immerse myself in something that I've been playing since the early 80s. I'm a gamer. It's why my handle online has always had some form of GX in it or gamer chick or whatever. But the me 10 years ago just wanted to feel like I was a part of the gaming community. So I put up with a lot of nonsense, whether it was dealing with assholes who got a little bit too friendly once they figured out I had lady parts, or just dealing with racist assholes, but not arguing with them because it wasn't worth the pushback. I wish I pushed back, because they became so much of the norm in spaces that they shouldn't have. Because they know young, especially white guys, will play video games and congregate. And there have been way more game companies that have been stronger against harassment, but it's still not where it needs to be. And the thing that bothers me about me from years ago was I tried so hard to fit in that I didn't want to push. I didn't want to be that voice. But sometimes you have to, especially when you see people spreading bullshit. And even 5 years ago, online with Twitter especially, we were seeing the people saying things like, oh, white genocide is a real thing, and bullshit about Irish slavery and other things that I was constantly calling out. White people will bend themselves in the pretzels to try to figure out ways to both act racist, but say that they are the victim of society's hatred. And that's not how we're going to play these games, because yes, Irish people in our country went through some shit. They were not slaves, and I want to make that correct. They did not go through chattel slavery. They went through indentured servitude, which was a period of service that they had to work off, and then they got to be free human beings. Was it a great life? Probably not. But they were not stripped of their humanity, and I call out anybody who tries to push the myth that they were. There were no Irish chattel slaves. But Irish people in our country, before they got to be put on the white people party bus, they were treated like shit notoriously in our country. There were literal historical markers of no Irish allowed. I don't even have to, because you could see the constant threat for Asian Americans in our country, yet some of them still think they can be classified as white. Even some of our Southeast Asians. Okay, there. Italians. And what kills me about Italians is I have such a direct tie in history, both family and friend wise, to so many amazing Italian people. I know Italian families that literally helped against the KKK. So it troubles me when I see violently racist Italian. Yet, especially on Staten Island right now, you literally have them in hate groups. You can't make that shit make sense. Y'all literally went through the same kind of violent hate. You literally had a serial killer that targeted y'all historically because people wanted to dehumanize you. Yet the moment so-called WASP let some of y'all on the bus, you were willing to leave behind everybody else, and it's not all right. Because when push comes to shove, if the rest of us were gone, and you had to trust your life in the hands of the same people that were willing to lynch other people based on their faith, if they're Jewish, based on their look, if they are supposedly a little bit too dark. You're going to tell me that you still want to cast your lot with those fuckers? Are you kidding me? And that's what it comes down to. I'm not saying you can trust every single human being in this world. I'm not stupid enough to believe that. And welcome to the chat, Beans. But I need people to logically understand the fallacy of white supremacy. Because for the longest time, a lot of yous who are now hip to it and think that you're down with it, y'all weren't considered white either. And heaven forbid if you were low-class white, you're still not up there with the people who think they're better than you or good. You are nothing but a pawn on a chessboard. And once you fall to the side, you will be replaced by the next dummy. That young man is going to set the rest of his fucking days in a prison jumpsuit if he doesn't get the death penalty. What was the point of that? Several others have did the same thing. And what do you think is going to happen? The whole idea of a race war, because that has been going on for so long, it is not even funny. Charles Manson tried it and failed. So many, pocket incels have tried it and failed. And I can tell you this, and I am being 100% with this. Y'all don't want this. You did not do well during the Civil War. And that was with troops that were pretty well trained for their day and age, versus a Union Army that were only wishy-washy into the commitment of releasing slaves in the first place. This is today, with people who are not just going to take your incel bullshit. And yeah, you might have easier access to weapons, but you aren't the only ones who have been training motherfuckers. So let's get it straight. Stop trying to push for a fucking Civil War 2.0 and start getting to the point where you realize that we're all human beings and we should be in a fucking better place together. Because that is the only way our species is going to thrive and survive at this point. This shit is not sustainable. And what drives me up a wall is just how easy the mindset it is to fall into, I gotta only be around people like me. I grew up in a small town. All I know is white people. And then you get little glimpses of our life and our way, and you still don't see us as human beings. I've been forced to see white people as human beings. I've never had the luxury to dehumanize white people, and I really don't want to. But I wonder how the majority of you would feel if you woke up one morning and everybody around you treated you like you were the plague. Like just having white skin just automatically made you persona non grata. Nobody would want to talk to you, look at you, be near you, be around you. People recoil from the sight of you. Every time you went outside, it was at your own detriment. I want you to imagine what that would feel like. Imagine what it would feel like to feel like a pariah simply for something about you that is a natural effect. Because that is what so many of us go through on a daily basis. And the more disgusting, ignorant ones are like, well, see, that's the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to feel different. But we're not. And this isn't natural. And if it upsets you to think that something like that can make you feel different, then you need to realize that there are so many of us living that life and it has to stop. And welcome to the chat, Blue Phoenix. No one should have to deal with violence because they're not of a certain group. And I would never deny what you went through. But you didn't turn that into, I need to jump to the other side and be a violent skinhead. You didn't turn your pain into hate. The problem with what you went through is there are a lot of people that do that. And it's the same with me. I could have taken everything I went through. I literally had a dude when I was 14 years old plot to burn my family out of our house because he didn't want people like us in his neighborhood. I realized that young Tin could either let that turn me into, I can't be around these people at all. And there are plenty of groups that would have embraced that mindset for me. Or I can work against their mindset. Because he would have won if I had fallen into that thought process of, I've got to hate all white people at this point. All they want to do is murder us. All they want to do is treat us like we don't belong here. But my act of defiance is to not only better myself, but to move away from these fallacies. Because it's a low bar. And I know it feels hard, especially after what happened this weekend. My mind went through so much. That's why I got it out of my system on Monday, and then I took to writing. It is the best way for me to calm down, keep focused, and not be in constant mourning. And writing my isekai, immersing myself in my culture and mythologies, it just reawakened my spirit. But when I say I also had to deep dive into the other side to see how and why, and looking at these articles, it was just infuriating, that bullshit about the replacement theory. But I think what really set me off was this article. And I know where the writer was coming from with this. But as I read his words, I was just filled with so much rage that it's why I have the title as it is. And my issue isn't with the fact that we have Black people that want to try to make sense of this, because it's always on us to do this. My problem with what he wrote in this article, he did make some good points down the line, and I'll have the link on my YouTube page with the full article. My problem with this is, just like with George Floyd, just like with so many other issues that our community has faced when violence like this has happened, we're expected to give grace to these people. We're expected to understand their mindset. And I don't want to keep doing that. There's no logic to the replacement theory. There's no logic to racism in this day and age. Yet it's still baked into our society and still too prevalent. There are way too many people still too comfortable hating fellow human beings for superficial bullshit, and it's got to stop. But what troubles me is this man making excuses for this young man's grandfather and father. For so many people who should know better in this day and age, but don't, because they're perfect little pawns in this system. We have to be the ones to shut this down. And I don't mean by being gracious to this and trying to make sense. I mean sensible. I don't need an article to tell me what I can see. Like I said on Monday, I live in Michigan now. I thought moving back up north, I would get away from a lot of the bullshit that I left in North Carolina, including open marches of a certain hate group, getting away from things like Charlottesville. Moving back up north, I thought would make me feel safer, and it didn't. Because it's everywhere here. And in the Midwest especially, there are a lot of little groups and little pocket sects of town that want to spread the shit like a poison. Like I said, we are currently going through an indictment. There was originally 14 men, down to 12. 2 already had their stuff thrown out, that plotted to kidnap and kill the governor here. Violence in the name of white supremacy isn't going to get better unless we push back, and we cannot push back graciously. We have to be aggressive with this, aggressive with facts, aggressive with laws, and make people realize that humanity comes in every shade, hue, whether they choose to believe culturally one way or choose not to believe in anything, is our rights as humans. And we have to start realizing that, and realizing that the path to us being better and getting somewhere in the future is mutual respect. I don't have to like everybody on this earth. I don't have to understand everybody on this earth to respect their existence. Yet, for somebody who is a bigot, it is so much easier for them to just, nope, I don't understand it, I don't like it, so I've got to hate it. And then they group up. And the internet, which should have been a place where we all got to see this world in its beauty and beyond, because we should be using the internet to show where we can explore space, the ocean, so many places on this earth. But instead, we use it to argue over pop culture and differences of opinion. It's tiring. And welcome to the chat, Call Me Mo. Welcome to the chat, Blue Phoenix. And for real, it is a good old boys club. And I'd like to see it in its death knells. I thought for real, with what went on the last few months, that we are really going to see some upheaval, but that we had enough good people willing to do whatever we can to make things better. But we can only do so much when we literally have people with easy access to weapons that should not be in civilians' hands. You will never convince me that assault rifles should be a civilian weapon. There should be laws against that. I'm sorry. The way I was raised, the way I was trained, these weapons are not for your average, everyday person. And it's tiring that we don't have legislators willing to fight to make this so. But what's also tiring is just how easy somebody 18 can go in, sometimes not even having a full-on license, and buy one of these weapons. And not only that, travel into a place where they don't live and completely destroy the lives of people that they didn't know, but just assumed about. Because in their ignorant adult mind, having a darker pigment somehow makes you less human than their lack of pigment makes them, and it's got to stop. What happened in Buffalo, it wasn't just a tragedy. It was an infuriating reminder of American apathy that we have to stop having. We have to start being motivated beyond just things like reproductive rights, which is important, which I will never stop fighting for as a woman. But when I think about how people sleep on the gun control issue, it's got to stop. America is so known for gun violence now, it's not even funny. Gun violence and jail are our 2 biggest imports and exports, I suppose. It's not funny anymore. It's got to stop. Because we are just indoctrinating younger, violenter groups of ignorant young men And sometimes they get little pick-me girls that cheerlead for them online too, or who they think are little girls. So many of them have been catfished too, but they don't like to hear about that. And my thing is, the gun issue isn't black and white, blue. I understand that as a family of gun owners. My thing is, make the laws harder. I'm not going to act like gun violence will just magically disappear overnight. But if we get enough laws on the books, which we've shown work, when Columbine happened, and I remember this because I just got out of high school, I was fresh into Florida trying to attempt my college life when Columbine happened. And I remember how everybody thought, what can we do? And they passed the assault rifle ban for a few years under the Clinton administration. And yeah, we still had issues of gun violence, but we didn't have another huge mass shooting for almost a decade after that. And then G.W. Bush took over and rolled back those laws. And not even 2 years into his term, Virginia Tech happened. There is always a causation. We can do it. We've done it before. It was effective. It didn't shut down every moment of gun violence, because there's still handgun violence. There's still going to be violent people. But issues of mass shooting, which was the main problem, we have to go down because the access to these weapons would not be easy. We would have to start repealing it. And yes, there will be groups that will still try to amass stuff. Cartels do it too. They're still illegal. We need to make owning these weapons illegal. And I know there are going to be people that don't agree with me. There'll probably be people in my family that don't agree with me at this point. I don't care anymore. After losing 10 innocent people to an assault rifle, on top of the several assault rifle issues, on top of the fact that there's a literal young man walking around, a free man, after he murdered 2 people, attempted to murder 3. It has to stop. These weapons are not for hunting. They are effective killing machines. So I want them banned. And I am tired of trying to be wishy-washy about this. I have had weapon training. I know that guns are not toys. I know that a gun's purpose is not just defense. You are using it to take a life. So people who want to try to play the semantics game with me, you're not going to win that argument. I realize that it'll take years to undo a lot of the damage, and there will always be groups that will try to fight against this. But the thing is, we still need the laws on the books. We still need to put the pressure on. When New Zealand had their idiot attack a church, mass shooter, the Prime Minister went into a quick effect and banned assault rifles. There's still crime in New Zealand. There's still issues in New Zealand. There's no other series of mass shooting in New Zealand. There's violence everywhere, y'all. I'm not acting like this world will just be a magical place without guns. Humans are still fucking human beings. But the reality of the situation is we have given too many ignorant humans way too easily of a tool for them to destroy lives, and then we act like we can't do anything about that. And I'm calling out the bullshit on this tonight. I'm tired of us making excuses to why we can't focus on that problem and nip it in the bud. Like I said, it will not be clean, but as somebody who's had to clean dirty things, who has had to turn something bad into a good slowly, if we don't start, we won't get anywhere. And we've got to stop being so weak on this stance. I don't want to take away every single piece from people. And I get that there are responsible gun owners in our country. But there has to be a fucking fine line between you owning a responsible piece to protect your home and you having a fucking literal arsenal because you think you're the next Frank Castle. There has to be a difference between those who are literally trained in doing that, and you should have to be trained in doing it. It shouldn't just be, oh, I've got the money to buy this, so I should own this. Gun ownership should come with fucking responsibilities. We have to be trained to drive a car, to have a license, even though some people skirt around that. But the majority have to do that. Yet for a fucking literal weapon that is used to kill people, some states barely have a fucking gun license thing. We need to have stronger stances on this. It would be lovely, but I realize that's not realistic, Blue. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need such weapons. But we don't have a perfect world. But what we do have are people who are smart enough to work around what we have. Make it harder to manufacture more of these things. Start making it illegal for people to own the ones that are already out there. Start working within a system to educate people away from the things that make these things seem like they're necessary as well. Because the root of gun ownership for a lot of people is fear. Fear. Oh, everything's bad. People don't look like you. They're people that are going to come and invade and take from you, which is almost always bullshit. The inequality of the current educational and work system as well leads to this. When you have so many more have-nots than haves, it's real easy for them to lean into violence. And the quickest way to lean into violence is to have the tools for it. Proper education that isn't just a grading factory. Proper talking to each other. Opening up these small towns so that they're not small anymore. Integrating. Enough is enough with the, oh, whites only here, blacks only there, this only there. We humans have to stop whatever this current system is and make shit better. And I'm not saying this like it's gonna happen overnight or it's gonna be easy, but I know there is enough of us now that see that this bullshit can't keep going. It's not sustainable. I'm tired of seeing people buried. I'm tired of seeing young people throwing their lives away to the lowest common denominator, not just here. But I can't worry about the assholes overseas right now. I would love to focus on the hate groups in Europe, but I'm not living in Europe. I'm not even planning to visit Europe anytime soon, so I can't focus my attitude there. So if you live in those countries and you watch this or listen to this, do your part. Call it out. Stamp out hate wherever you can. I need to focus on here, on this soil, because there are so many little sects of this crap. And it's insidious. It's from the pulpit to your parks, from the pulpit to your online forums, just spreading this misinformation like bile. And it seeps into your pores until you regurgitate it. And if it was such a better way of thinking, why are you so angry? If it was such a better way of thinking, why aren't you in a better place? You're not, because it's not meant for you to be in a better place. It's for you to keep some rich asshole in a better place while you're at our throats and at each other's throats until we're dead and they're still rich. That is why I want to call this shit out. Because you're being a foot soldier for fuckery ain't getting us nowhere. And in a day and age where we have tech that can go into space, have tech that can show us how beautiful and big this planet is, have tech that can freaking digitally create landscapes, yet we're still at each other's throats for things like how you pray, who you love, what you look like. That is a human problem. And it has to fucking end. And what troubles me about things like the replacement theory and things about anti-Semitism and homophobia and any amount of bigotry, whether it's a black person, because we indulge in bigotry. It's not racism, because racism comes with a structural advantage that most people of color do not have, whether they think they have or not. But bigotry is a human thing. And everybody has the propensity of being a bigot. And your best bet in life is to start shedding that toxic thought process. It's not easy. After Sunday, I had to fight a lot of dark thoughts. And I am real enough to admit that. I had to really start reevaluating who I interact with, who I work with, who I love, because it's scary out there, y'all. It's scary to think that a person that I thought I was cool with will smile in my face and then behind my back talking about, well, I like 10, but I can't get too close to her because she might be trying to replace me. Replace you with what? We're all human beings. And it really is that simple when you think about it. But you're up against a wall of not only ignorance, but arrogance that feels unclimbable, but we can scale it or knock that shit right down on its ass where it belongs, because it has no basis and foundation in reality. It is just bitter, hateful people who found enough dumber, hateful people who will parrot this stuff. And it needs those of us who see it for what it is, whether we look like me or whether you look like the people that are really being loud right now, to not only call us out at the risk of being called too woke, at the risk of people saying, oh, you're just an N lover or whatever. We have to stand together. We've come together for other things. It shouldn't take these constant tragedies to open people's eyes to just how insidious and ridiculous this is. And if we don't start pushing back and working on ourselves to shed whatever bits of bigotry or racism or ignorance we have, this world is going to fall to the wayside. It's not sustainable. We see it all the time. These angry, bitter people getting us in the wars, telling us this group is too different from you. This person doesn't look or do things the way you do. So what do? We fight. Our planet has been a battle planet for so long, and it is so exhausting because it's not our only potential. And it shouldn't take begging y'all to just think a bit more. But if I have to humble myself and say, please just think and push towards better, because that's where we should be right now. We are living in a world that is rapidly changing tech-wise, rapidly moving into a more autonomous feature. And instead of being able to embrace the digital age with passion and fervor and artistic reverie, we're watching people fight over resources, fight over who can be the richest idiot in the digital space with Bitcoin and other little fucking terms. So you can fight in that space too one day. It's not okay. And like I said, we have to stop giving these hate groups any place to feel safe. And if you are running these kind of boards, y'all notice. We're going to start organizing online places where we can actively fight, actively call out, actively shine a light on these places that allow hatred unchecked, that allow hatred for the laws, that allow hatred because freedom of speech. One of the reasons why I've stayed off Twitter, even though now that I'm doing my Wattpad stuff for my stories, it will post every once in a while to both Twitter and Tumblr. That'll be the only new tweets you'll see out of me for a while until I know whether or not Apartheid Edgelord is really going to own it. Because for real, I am not going to keep putting new content on a place owned by somebody claiming to be for free speech when all he wants to do is open up the floodgates to hate speech. I'm not okay with that. I will never be okay with that. It's why I don't fuck with Facebook. I don't need any place that wants to hold me captive to ignorance. But if Twitter does become that place, I will organize against that too. If that is how I have to spend any free moment I'm not using for creative energy, I will. Because we cannot allow them to have any more safe places. We cannot allow them to feel like the hate that they espouse is the norm. We have got to nip this shit in the bud. It is so exhausting. And I appreciate that, Blue. I am going to I'll send you the link in a DM after, because like I said, I have blocked links in the chat just for the safety, because of the topics that I handle on the Bonnet Chronicles. I never know if somebody's going to, try it. They won't last long because I constantly have my mods watching, but I just to be on the safe side, because I upload these to YouTube too. But I did start with my Wattpad. It's a place for writers. It's also nice because I can add pictures and stuff to the story that I'm working on as well. I'm also editing down the sci-fi novel. I really want to get that in its entirety published. I don't know if I'm going to just digital. My friend really thinks I should put it to a publishing agency. I just want to get the story out there at this point, so it just depends. And that long thing, I didn't think it was going to go through, but Nightbot came through. That link right there is to the isekai that I'm working on. There are 2 chapters currently up. Chapter 3 will be up this week. I am going to write, hopefully, a chapter every other day and get it up either once a week or maybe twice a week, depending on how much writing I get done. The story has beginning, middle, and end already. I just have to get it out in pieces because that's how my brain works. I am excited for this, y'all, because I feel like the only way to combat the complaint I have about stuff in entertainment not being more diverse is to bring my own writing into it. But it takes time. So I am going to do my part to work on not only politics and social issues, but to work on my end on the entertainment thing. And I do not currently have a Patreon, Blue. I don't know what it is about my personality. I always feel guilty when people want to give me money for the things I do. I know that as a writer, I'm actually providing content and doing these Bonnet Chronicles, but it always still, and maybe it's because of the way I was raised, it still doesn't feel like work yet for me. So while I should set up something like Patreon, I should set up something, I feel guilty doing it just yet, especially since I don't feel I have enough work to justify it. Maybe once I have more of the story out, I'll feel more confident setting something like that up. But to me, seeing people with Patreon right now, especially dealing with YouTube and everything else, it still gives me that vibe of people just trying to get money to do bare minimum, and I don't ever want to fall into that pattern. Everything I put out is because I want to, and whether y'all come out of pocket for me or not, the content's going to be there. Just like these Bonnet Chronicles, I plan on doing this until I don't want to do it anymore. And for the writing, I have so many stories in me. Not just this, I'm going to put up hopefully some of the other stories that I have, some non-fictional, well, they are all kind of fictional, but non-fantasy type stories. I have one that is really near and dear to me, but I wanted to be careful with it because it's for a community that I'm not a part of, but that I respect. There's a lot on the horizon, and I appreciate all of you who support me. I'm going to take that chance and put my work out there using WhatsApp and possibly my own blog site eventually as well, because like I said, there's only so much exposure you can do even on those author sites, and I'm always worried about putting my work on other people's stuff, having to deal with them trying to take my stuff as well. So I'm schizophrenic, so paranoia is real as well. But I promise you that the more content I put out, the more I will get the word out. And I am not doing that for y'all to come out of pocket, but it's always appreciative. And I know that so many of you have not only donated to me and my family, but have helped out so many causes that I've put forward, and it's always appreciated. But it is 8 o'clock, y'all. I am going to get ready to wrap this up. I will be on tomorrow for a bit. I'm either going to do a little bit more Lost Ark play or maybe some Diablo 3 riffs. I was supposed to do that last weekend, but like I said, with everything that went down in Buffalo, I was wrecked. I got through Sunday last week, and even the guys were like, they could tell I was not in the same mind frame that I'm normally in when we do our Dungeons and Dragons adventures. It was a rough weekend, and I'm hoping that tomorrow and Sunday I'll be in a little bit more focused. I'm not going to say better spirits because we literally just lost 10 lives. And I will never make light of that. But I realize that I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to try to do the things that I've done, and I'm going to still do my best to bring content. So I will be here tomorrow. I will be here on Sunday. It will be more of a gaming format. So if you want to sit in, great. If not, I will see you on Tuesday for the election-focused Bonnet Chronicles. Hopefully on Tuesday I will have more candidates to talk about as we draw closer to the midterms. I want to start putting more of a focus early on. I need to get a jump on this because there are way too many people talking negative already. And the only way we're going to combat that is to remind people who's running, remind people to check your ballots, and keep you focused. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. Thank you so much for sitting in. Terry Antico, Call Me Mo, Blue Phoenix, Jay Feldman, I love you all so much. You have been so supportive. Beans, I seen you, girl. I seen you get in there. Axiom, always love. Thank you so much for having my back. I will be back on Tuesday. Y'all take it easy and have a great weekend if I don't see you soon.